Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of Heal to Heal. My name is Sally Janet DeGruchy. I'm the founder of Daily Practice, and I am an EFT tapping practitioner or an energy psychology practitioner. I work with kids and adults, and I'm joined with two guests today that I'm really looking forward to introducing you to. The first is Sharon King. Sharon King, she comes from the UK and she's currently based in Thailand. She's living on a beautiful island called Koh Phangan. Sharon is an EFT practitioner herself. Sharon is also a trainer. She facilitates 3 courses for practitioners, and those include quantum field tapping, which I completed with Sharon last year. It's completely transformed the way that I practice with my clients, so I highly recommend exploring that if you're an EFT practitioner out there. Second course she offers is called Heal Your Birth, and we might explore a little bit of that today in a demonstration session. And the third course that she offers, which I'm very keen to do at some stage as well, because it's right up my alley, is Magic, Miracles, and Manifestation. So she's going to be able to tell us a little bit about those courses in this interview. And Sharon is also the host of her own podcast, and her show is called Magical New Beginnings. And I had the privilege of being on Sharon's show just last week, and we had a really good chat there about creative ways that you can heal with your own children. So we also have Sylia Mathers. Have I got the pronunciation right there, Sylia?
Maida. It's Maida.
Sylia Maida, there you go. And Sylia is actually from Austria, but she's also based in Sydney, Australia. She lives in beautiful Bondi Beach. And I've actually just met her today for the very first time. We had coffee this morning, but we've been connected through, the practitioner hub, Bodhi, here in Sydney for a little while. And she is a human design expert and coach herself. And Sylvia is going to be coming on the second episode of Heal to Heal. So excited to have her join us today and tune into this conversation and demonstration with Sharon. And Sylvia might also be jumping in with some questions as we go as well. So welcome, beautiful ladies. And I feel very well supported in my first episode here because Sylvia actually also hosts her own podcast. Her show is called Soul Sunshine, and that's also the name of her business. So I feel like I'm in good hands here. And so I'm going to get started with coming over to Sharon. Got a few questions for her before we go into our demonstration. All right, Sharon, so the first question for you, can you tell us, what does healing mean to you?
That's a really good question and a very difficult one to keep very short, but I'm gonna give it a go.
Great.
So healing to me means living a more joyful life where you're not constantly being triggered into what's happened in the past. So it means that you can be, instead of like going through life, like going, oh, that person triggered me. Oh, that person triggered me. Oh, my husband triggered me. My kids triggered me. My friend triggered me. The Donald Trump triggered me. I have all these triggers and it's everybody else that's pushing my buttons. It's like healing is taking the time to look at your buttons because they are your triggers, they are your buttons, and they belong to your younger selves that have, from experiences that you've had right from the point of conception, right the way through to this now moment.
I love that, Sharon.
Yeah.
It's a really good definition. And I think that it's almost what you're saying. It's like it's a gateway to mindfulness and a gateway to presence, the gateway to this present moment, which is where we can experience greater joy. So thank you for sharing. I love that. So next question for you. What is EFT tapping? Because some of our listeners, hopefully there are some listeners, I've got none at the moment, but what is EFT tapping? Can you give us a brief definition of it, a little explanation, and how does it work?
So EFT tapping is the basis of a lot of the work that I do. And it's called an energy psychology technique, and it's based on the traditional Chinese idea of acupuncture points. So instead of using needles, what we do is we tap on certain acupressure points whilst we're thinking about a negative emotion or a negative event. And what happens during those events is the emotion of what happens during a trauma gets stored in our body. So by putting your intention on whatever's going on, so looking at like what is currently going on, what's my current emotion, you identify where it is in your body, and then you do tapping on the meridian points, and it's almost giving your energetic system permission to start letting it go. Because we never want to let anything go that we don't understand, that it's going to be painful, right? Nobody ever books a session with anybody, a therapist, when their life is going perfectly and they feel wonderful. It's either an emotional pain, a physical pain, a mental block. That's why people want to go through that healing process. But you've got to be brave and you've got to look at it. So once you've identified the emotion, you do some EFT tapping on it. You first acknowledge that you've got this issue, and then you tap on the all over the different meridian points in order to give your mind, body, spirit permission to let go of what happened or to transform what happened.
I love that, Sharon. And I love how, you use the analogy of your buttons getting pushed when you get triggered. And I love that we can think of our tapping points like they are these little buttons that we can press on our body. And, when we tap with kids, we actually use magic spots, we call them. And there's Huggy the bear that's got those little spots sewed onto his body, and you can tap those. And it's like you're rewiring those buttons to stay calm and relaxed, isn't it? While you're focusing on something that might otherwise stress you out. Yeah, and I think I don't know if we mentioned that the acronym EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques. So we're really tuning into the emotions, but it can also be used for physical pain, not just our emotional pain as well, which is really one of the cool things about it. Yeah.
Yes, because our physical pains are created by an emotional trauma that we've had way back. So everything comes back to energy, everything comes back to emotional energy, mental energy, physical energy, or stuck emotional, mental, physical energy.
Yes. And that's also why they call it a somatic practice too, because the word somatic actually means like the mind-body connection. So we're really looking at how all the different systems in our body are linked.
Yeah.
Amazing. All right, Sharon. So could you tell us a little bit about how you got into EF tapping yourself?
Oh, okay. So I talk about in my Magic Miracles and Manifestation course a lot about being guided by the universe. So so all through my life, I have been very interested in alternative stuff, massage, reflexology, aromatherapy, even animal communication, everything. And I was searching for what it is that I am really meant to be doing here, life purpose work. So what is it I'm meant to be doing? And I'm searching, and it wasn't until I got into my 40s that somebody put a message in our group, animal communication group. Does anybody know what EFT is? And so I went straight onto Google, what's EFT? Found Gary Craig's website. Looked at it, downloaded the manual, and went, nah, that's too crazy for me. So closed it all down and ignored it. And then when I was doing my assessments for the animal communication, I had to pick 4 professional people to do a communication with that animal with. And 2 out of the 4 people that I chose did EFT with animals. So after I did the communication with their animal, I say, well, tell me about this EFT thing, because like it keeps coming in front of me and I keep trying to ignore it. I went, it's amazing. It's really amazing to work with animals with EFT, and it's pretty good with humans too. So I was like, at that time, I want to work with animals. So I'm going to do EFT. So back on Google, and up came Carl Dawson's website. And he was doing an EFT course up in Scotland, in Findhorn, in 2 weeks' time.
And was he doing matrix reimprinting at that point, or was it just the clinical EFT?
It's 2007.
Okay.
So it was just EFT, not clinical EFT, just EFT.
Okay. Yes.
So I went on the course. I saw just the most amazing things happen in 3 days. When I left the course, I was flying home on a very small plane, And I always say I could have flown home without the plane. I was so high because I realized this is it.
You
This is
found
what
your
I've been
calling,
looking for.
or it found you, should we
Amazing.
say?
Yeah. So that's how I discovered it. And then, I did 2 years of just going in as an emotional helper. And then Carl started developing matrix reimprinting, which is using EFT, but this concept opens it up wider to the fact that you're now working with your younger self.
Mm.
So you go step back into the memory of being a young child, you work with your younger self, help your younger self get some resolution, but also help them change the beliefs. So,
Yes.
our negative beliefs run our lives.
And many of them are
Consciously.
subconscious. Yeah.
Exactly. We're
Yeah.
not even aware of them until we become aware of them.
And most of them are programmed before the age of 7 as well, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Programmed in the womb, programmed by our bonding or lack of bonding experience, programmed by our first few years of life. And right up to the age of 6, 7, we are in what we're called a hypnagogic state. So we're literally just like a blank computer, blank tape recorder. We just take in the world, and whatever beliefs our parents have, we take those on as ours. And it's not until we get to the age of 7 where we get a different brain development, then we start to be able to go, oh, mummy's angry, not we're angry, because we are so connected. So
and some even say,
other.
I think some even say that it's not until 12 we have that deductive reasoning ability that's developing in that prefrontal cortex of our brain. So we're just like little sponges before that, taking it on without knowing. There's no filter.
Exactly. Exactly.
And did
I
you
also
continue?
really love how,
Sorry.
I also really love how you were talking about the fact that, EFT, it kept coming back for all those different people around you. And it's just such a nice reminder to see that the universe kind of has got your back, right? It's like what's meant for you, it's always supposed to find you, and it's always going to find you. And I think a lot of the time, in this day and age where it's like everything's hectic and people, work's hectic and life and family and whatever, and people are sometimes so focused on finding their purpose, so doing something special, that it's almost like they're shut off to everything that's being presented to them, and just to be open to what's in your orbit, and around you. Like maybe the first time you were like, oh no, that's not for me, and then it kept coming back and you're like, oh, wait a second, maybe this is for me. So I just love that story as well, as the kind of zooming out from onto that level. So it's beautiful.
Absolutely.
Sharon, sorry, I was going to say, did you continue working with animals, or did you go off and just focus on people at that point?
No, yes, because of the experiences that I saw in the EFT course. I mean, I'll give you a very quick, we all need a convincer, right?
Yes.
We all need this one thing that goes, shit, this really works. Excuse my French.
Yes.
But there was this lady who had a frozen shoulder, and she could only raise her hand this high.
Yes.
And it had been like it for 2 years.
Right? So for those listening, not watching, Sharon's just got her elbow up where her shoulder is. So just up at sort of that 90 degrees.
She couldn't raise her arm any higher than that. So she started doing, Carl did a demo with her, and they started tapping, and he just said to her, what happened 2 years ago? And she went, oh, yes, my effing husband ran off with a younger woman. That's what happened.
She hadn't processed the trauma from that experience, and it got frozen in her shoulder.
The anger of that got frozen in her shoulder. So they did some rounds of tapping on this anger about her husband leaving, and then Carl asked her to put her arm in the air, and she literally just put her hand straight up above her head. Not even a little bit of an improvement. It was like straight up. It was like the whole joint
couldn't be more convincing than that, Sharon. It sounds like it was your moment of putting your own hand up and saying, yes, it is for me too.
So that was my convincer.
And then,
great. Then I started learning the matrix, because the matrix, Carl started to develop the matrix in I think about 2008, 2009. And the rest, as they say, is history. And then I discovered my niche with birth trauma, and again, thanks to Carl and that EFT and matrix So
yes. And something I love, Sharon, about your quantum field tapping program as well is the way that you bring in color psychology. Could you
yes.
tell us a little bit about color psychology and why that works so well with EFT?
Color works very well with anything.
Oh, even on its own. Color works
Even
on its
on
own.
its own.
And I've used it in so many ways with my own kids and myself
Yes,
and adults that I work with too, just on its own. So even if it's not paired with EFT.
exactly.
Yeah.
So color is a frequency. Color
Mm.
also is a sound,
hmm
right? So people with the mixed senses called synesthesia can look at a color and hear a sound, or
Yes.
can hear a sound and imagine a color.
Yes.
So so it's all frequency. We are made up of light. We're made up of white cells. Within white is the full spectrum of the rainbow.
Yes.
Right. So you think of like Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon album cover. You've got the rainbow going in one side, and then the white light coming into this prism.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the white light goes in and can come out as color.
It's kind of
or
how
the color can go in.
the
Yes.
prism works that in that way, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. So what happens when we have something, so let's take anger. All right. So anger usually shows up as red.
Yes.
All right. So think about that color, red. Red is your base chakra color. It is your survival color. It is our what's real, what's physical. It is just basically the base of everything. It's about connection or separation. So when you're really angry, like when people tune into the color of anger, it's usually a bright red or a bright orange because it's fiery. It's like motivational.
Yes, there's even that saying when people are seeing red, or the matadors hold out the red in front of the bulls.
Exactly.
See red.
Exactly. So the complementary color to red is green. So if you were to ask somebody, okay, so this anger, if you were to bring in a color that would start to either ease or heal or dissipate, or give you, what's more important, give you permission to express your anger safely, what color would you need to bring in? All right. And then somebody may choose a blue, a beautiful, healing, soft blue that's just going to water to dampen down the fire. Somebody else may choose to bring in green, which is matching the red. Yeah, and green
complementary
is about
color.
Complementary color, but it's all about new beginnings and space. It's the heart chakra color, so it's bringing that element of love in. Yeah, but then also red can be passion, it can be love, it can be, so each color has a positive and negative aspect to it, depending on whether it's a negative emotion or a positive emotion. So literally we just use that color, and our subconscious operates in images, feelings, and color. Right. So our subconscious knows what color we need in order to bring us back to white light. We are constantly trying to get back to white light. Our cells in our body, our thought process, everything. We are trying to come back to balance.
Yes. It's our homeostasis. It's interesting. That's also the color. White or clear is the color of the crown chakra, and then you go all the way down to the red as well. So could you tell us a little bit, Sharon, about each of your programs that you offer? So maybe starting with quantum field tapping. Tell us briefly how that works, and then we'll go through Heal Your Birth and Magic Miracles and Manifestation.
Well, quantum field tapping is based primarily on the experience and the training I had with matrix reimprinting. So it's my version of that, but we're bringing in more color.
Yes.
And also there's a whole number of techniques that over the years that I've developed, some shamanic, some just creative. I love what you do with children, Sally. So I hope you're going to put the link to your interview below so people can watch that too.
Yes, I will do.
But so quantum field tapping is basically the concept of we're using EFT, but we're going back and we're working with our younger self, because our younger self is the real client.
Yes.
All right. So they're the real client. They're the one that's holding all the thoughts, feelings, and emotions of what happened during a specific event in our life. I call it a trauma capsule.
Yes.
And these trauma capsules are filled with everything that happened that day, that hour, that minute, whatever happened at that time. And the casing for it is usually shock, because when we go into trauma, we go into shock, which is a natural process to stop us taking on the enormity of what happened.
And this is normally grey, isn't it? The color comes up as grey.
Yes, but we don't normally process shock. All right, we're very good at dampening down our, if you come across somebody who's had an accident and they're shaking, what's the first thing you want to do?
People tend to stop the shaking, don't they? But that's actually the trauma release that they need.
Yes. Exactly. So we go back in, work with our younger self. We help release the shock. We bring knowledge and understanding to the younger self. We bring community to the younger self, because during a traumatic event, even if you've got people around you, you feel very isolated and alone. So if you have somebody come in who's on your side, you're no longer alone. Right.
Resourcing the younger self.
Resourcing the younger self, really helping them. So then we look at what beliefs did they make at the time? How can we transform those beliefs? Who else was involved in that? So we also work with the other people that are involved, say mum or dad.
Yes, you can bring them in too.
We can bring them in too. We can work with them. So it's taken EFT to a whole new level. Whereas EFT, you bring the full trauma of what happened through your body and you tap on it as you're going through the event, and they call that the movie technique. So you watch a little bit of what happened and then you tap on how you're feeling about it. Whereas with QFT, your younger self is the one that's telling you how they feel about it, and you become the therapist for your younger self, and you tap on your younger self.
Yes. And I think it's important for people to realize here as well, and this is becoming more widely known, but a trauma can be a big T trauma or a little t trauma. So some people think that trauma is only big T traumas, which are like life-threatening situations, like a near-death experience or the death of a loved one or something like that. But trauma can also be something like falling over and scraping your knee when you're 2 years old and you don't have anyone there to comfort you at the time or show you empathy. That can be stored in the body as trauma.
Absolutely. But interestingly enough, even though we call it little t trauma, to the child, it's a big trauma.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
So
it's all how it's perceived. And some of those keywords that you use there, it's when you're under-resourced, you feel powerless, those sorts of things.
Yeah. So I'll give you a quick example. Little girl, 4 years old. So first of all, the client comes to me. She's an artist, has trouble putting her work out there. So we follow the energy, because I get her to think about, when you start to advertise, what do you feel? So we go back in time, and as a 4-year-old, she was busily drawing a picture, sitting on the floor. Her dad's watching the football. She finishes her picture, just happens to coincide with the end of the football match, and father's football match, his team has lost. Right. So as she's presenting him her picture that she's taken a lot of care and energy to create for him, he's now jumping up, like getting very angry because his football team has lost.
Yes.
At 4 years old, in her mind that daddy was angry with her because her picture wasn't good enough, which means she isn't good enough.
So she's taken on the belief that it's not safe to share, to advertise your work like she did then.
Exactly.
And then because of the cognitive bias, your brain, or the confirmation bias, you go through life looking for situations that reaffirm that belief. And so that's why our triggerings can actually get stronger as we go, unless we consciously start to unravel them.
Absolutely. So every time, she may have handed in homework at school, or every time she'd done that, she would have been triggered by it, but not known where it came from.
Yes.
So the important thing is what we did is we tapped on dad for his anger about his football team losing. So we calmed him down. And then we explained to him, look, your 4-year-old daughter has literally just decided her work is terrible and it's affecting the rest of her life because of the way you reacted to her picture. Like, what parent wants to hear that and is going to go, oh my God, okay, like, I'm really sorry, your picture's amazing. I was just upset about what happened on the television, but your picture is amazing. So now the 4-year-old understands that it wasn't her picture, it was, dad's anger about what happened on the television. And now he's telling her how amazing her pictures are. So it's taken that sting, that energy out of it, but also it's put in the positive because we all need to be seen, heard, felt, understood.
Yes.
So when we offer ourselves to somebody and we need to be received, and if we're not received, then we start shutting ourselves down, and that's what she'd done. So
interesting as well, right? Because when you're talking about like the big D's, small D's are big D's for children, and sometimes from an outside perspective, it may seem like something very insignificant or something that's actually almost not worth thinking about, right? Because it's like, because as an adult, you obviously notice that that's not been related, even if you're the mom, for example, watching that scenario, you'll be like, yeah, that's not related. But you just never know how the child is going to take that on, right? And at 4 years old, I mean, chances are it was probably still quite unconscious, because you might not even remember it consciously per se,
No.
And that's a lot of those things when we're looking at, what's holding us back in life now, or what are some of the limiting beliefs. And you've touched on that at the beginning. Often it goes back, very early on in our childhood or even in our womb, where we literally can't remember it, consciously. So, and then, getting rid of those blocks and those belief systems that we've been carrying throughout our whole lives can then just make such a profound impact in someone's life moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think if you've got, you can have, I think, also conscious and unconscious parenting styles. And if you've got an unconscious parent who isn't able to take accountability for their actions, or just not be present enough to even notice the effect that it's having on their child, then there's no hope of repairing some of the damage that happens. But let's say if in that situation that father had been a little bit more conscious or aware of what, even though he screamed about the game, he then realized, oh, okay, my daughter's trying to share something with me here. He could have stopped, slowed down, got down on her level and explained it. And there could have been some repair. And so I think that's also, Sylia and I this morning were talking about how you can actually have post-traumatic stress, where you carry stress and trauma in your body, but you can also, on the flip side, have post-traumatic growth. So I think that's also reassuring for parents to know that if they do slip up or make mistakes, no one's perfect all the time. We all have our own triggers. We're all human. But if you can catch yourself even after something's happened and then get down on the level of your child and show them some empathy and resource them then, and you can almost put the new belief in then before it starts to build up and cause any long-term damage.
And anyone who's done that before, and I mean, Sally, I'm sure you've had those experiences before as well with your daughters, but I know when I do that with my sons, when I have a slip up or something and something doesn't go the way that or I behave in a way that I didn't really necessarily want to behave, and in the evening I lie down with them in bed and I'm like, I'm really sorry about the way I behaved today, that didn't have anything to do with you, it was because I'm stressed at work or whatever it may have been, And it's just also really interesting to see their reaction to it, often it's like this, it's okay, mommy, it's almost like they understand, but it's like showing them that we also make mistakes, but that it's important to talk about it and to move on from that together, and not just leave it there and kind of brush it under the carpet.
Yes, exactly. And monkey see, monkey do. So the children are going to be then more likely to take accountability for their actions and say sorry if they ever need to as well when they slip up.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Right, Sharon. So maybe you could tell us a little bit now about Heal Your Birth, if you feel like you're complete with the quantum field tapping.
Yes, I think so. The Heal Your Birth originally was called Matrix Birth Imprinting, and that came about through working with a lovely lady called Caroline. And she was in fear of giving birth to her third child. She had had 2 boys previously. Both were long labours, medically induced labours, and she had trouble breastfeeding afterwards. And she desperately wanted a natural birth, but both of them were not natural, So when she went to the doctors after the first birth, when she was pregnant the second time, the doctor, and she's told the doctor, I'm really fearful of giving birth because my first experience was so traumatic. He said, don't worry, no two births are ever going to be the same. So you can imagine how shocked she was when this one was almost identical to the first one. So of course, now you're pregnant with number 3. So the past has shown you that birth is traumatic and difficult because that's all the experience she has to go on.
Mm.
So we first of all started just doing some tapping on the fear that she felt. And then we went back into the field, quantum field, into the matrix to when she gave birth to her first son.
Mm.
And when we got there, the first thing we started off with that point that she was having to lay down on the table. She had the drip in the arm for the induction, and she had a monitor around her belly.
Mm-hmm.
And the heartbeat of the baby kept dipping. So she kept going into fear. So she started tapping on her younger self for the fear. And also the fact that she was trapped because her body intuitively she wanted to get up and walk around, but because she had this medical procedure happening, she had to stay still. So she's already going against what her intuition and nature is telling her to do. So she's having to lay there. So we tapped on her, we took everything off, and we got her up moving around because that's what she needed to be doing. And then the next point of trauma came where the midwife kept coming in, trying to persuade her to have a epidural. She didn't want an epidural. She wanted a natural birth. And in the end, the midwife kept saying, look, you're only 3 centimeters dilated. You're getting really, really tired. Please have an epidural. You're not, basically telling her that she wasn't strong enough to give birth naturally. So in the end, because she's not being supported, she gives in. 2 hours later, the anaesthetist turns up to administer the epidural. The midwife then checks her afterwards and goes, oh, well, now you're 10 centimeters dilated. You could have given birth naturally, but hey, now you get to do it like pain-free. All right. So in that moment, she completely lost trust of the medical profession, and she suddenly didn't feel safe. So when you're giving birth and you don't feel safe, labor stops or slows down. All right. So we tapped on her then. We exchanged the midwife for a beautiful angel called Annie. And then the birth just started to happen. As soon as Annie came in, out he came. Luke,
Did she change that she'd had the epidural in the memory, or she still had the epidural?
She didn't have the epidural.
So she sort of rewrote that part. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. There's a number of ways you can deal with any medication. I'm not going to go into it here, but yeah, you can reverse that and the effects of that. So we're now tapping on her. Luke comes out. She's holding him in her arms and she's doing the bonding process with him. Right. So, and that's the picture we re-imprint. So basically the re-imprinting part is like when you get to a positive picture, and that one was just full of love and bonding and hormones, and it was amazing. So we then flood the body through with those new emotions, those new feelings, and send that back out to the universe, send it out to the field, and that changes our point of reality. So we then go to her own birth experience. And she can, as she tunes into her mum, she realizes her mum's feeling the same fear as she is, or she was when she was giving birth. So we now start tapping on mum. We tap on baby Caroline in the womb. We bring in, because mum needs some support, so we bring in her mother, but then there's a problem between mother and grandmother, so we have to do some tapping to sort out what's going on there. And then baby Caroline feels safe, so she's now coming out, and we go through the bonding process with her mother. And I'm about to re-imprint that when she starts to go, oh, I've got this pain, this energy in my chest. And so we start tuning, and I'm like going, well, that's not right, because like we're at a positive place. So, but this other energy came in, this other emotion came in, and she realized that it was because she had yellow jaundice, she had to stay in the hospital for 2 weeks after she was born. Mum would express the milk for the nurses to feed her at night because mum had to go home and look after her older brother. So she
Okay.
was left on her own at night.
Mm.
So that pain that she felt in her chest was a separation from anxiety from
Oh,
mum.
yeah, as a
So
newborn baby.
yes, so we tap on the baby, we explain to the baby why mum has to go home, right? Because baby doesn't understand. All baby knows is that mum's not here.
Was Caroline quite emotional as she remembered this and felt the
Yes,
energy move through her? Yeah.
yeah.
Big release.
So yeah, but not so big, right? The whole thing about doing it in this way where you're working with your younger self is it means that you are more disassociated from the emotion, right? Because your younger self is the one that holds the emotions. You're not bringing that fully through your body. So although yes, she was emotional, she wasn't like overly traumatized or emotional. So that's
there's this sort
important to
of,
know.
it's like there's an aspect of reparenting of yourself.
Yes.
And empowering the client that you're working with to go
Yes.
back and actually resource their younger self.
Yes, because EFT on its own is a bit hard on the nervous system because you're
Yes.
bringing the full enormity of what happened through the body.
Yeah.
Almost
Whereas
like you're reliving it, right? Yeah.
right, you're reliving it. Whereas this, your younger self is reliving it. And yes, you are connected to it, but you're not fully immersed in it.
Yes.
So,
and I guess, you know, when with EFT tapping, I guess that worth touching on here, the positive thing about regular EFT tapping compared to traditional talk therapy is at least you're doing the somatic component of tapping. Like, and the problem that they find with people like war veterans who have PTSD, if they're just doing regular talk sessions, they can actually make their problems worse because they're reliving it. And then EFT tapping is a step better where you're actually clearing it from the body with the tapping. But this just elevates it even more and makes it even more powerful because you're also giving that level of safety in working with the younger self.
Yeah. So all our regular thoughts create like neuro pathways in our brain. So think about a path through the woods. If nobody's ever walked through that woods and the grass is really high,
yes,
but then you start walking through that path day in, day out, you know, 6 times a day, 15 times a day, that there's soon going to be a clear pathway, and then it's going to get deeper and deeper and deeper if you don't repair the path. So you'll make every time you tell a story, you're making that pathway more ingrained.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're getting more and more stuck in it. Whereas here you're going in, you're dealing with it, you're changing it, you're changing the pathways, your neural pathways in your brain, basically. Yeah. But if you're doing traditional counseling, then you're just walking, and you may feel a little bit better because you've been heard, but the shock and the trauma is still there in the body.
Exactly.
And it's still held by the younger self back at that time. So back to Caroline. So we tapped on her baby self. She felt, we asked the baby self, her baby self, what did she need? Now, in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, she's obviously going to choose to go home with her mum and not stay in hospital. But no, baby Caroline said she wanted Annie to stay with her.
Okay.
All right. So now she's resourced. Now she's got company. Now she understands why mum had to go home and that she's not being abandoned, that she's very much loved. All right. And protected by Angel Annie. So that's the picture we were in print. We go to the birth of her second son, Jamie, and his birth, as she went through the memory of it, his birth was pretty clear because we'd done so much work on the first time.
Yes.
The energy of that had been cleared as well. Apart from the fact when he was coming out, the midwife had to turn him because he wasn't fully turned properly and he had neck issues. So we just dealt with that little bit. And then
no doubt on the metaphysical level, perhaps that can also mean that those neck issues might get better for that child if it's something that's going on in real life now.
So we then go through the birth process, how it is. Well, I will answer your question in a minute. Then we go through the birth as it should be. We do the bonding process. All right. So that's 3 births we've done now in this one session. And I'm just sitting there, just looking at her. She's 5 months pregnant. So I'm looking at her belly bump. And I just said to her, how would it be if we showed the baby in the future how the birth is going to be? And she went, yeah, I'd love that, she said. And actually on the drive over here, I was thinking about how the birth was going, how, you know, who I wanted to be, where I wanted to give birth and things like this. So she'd already set up in her mind who was going to be there, what the birthing room was going to look like. So, and she literally, we just put her hand on the belly and just said to the baby, look, this is a future event. This is not happening now. Auntie Sharon is not a real midwife. So don't come now, but this is a future event. So she just took in her mind, she just went through that process. And bear in mind that baby's also just gone through those 3 experiences of birth with her as well.
Yeah.
All right. Because the baby, whilst in utero, is very connected to mum's thoughts, feelings, and
still
emotions.
In the current of everything that you think and feel and do.
So 3 times getting a release of that oxytocin as we're doing the bonding process. So it was very easy just to show the baby in the future how the birth and bonding experience was going to be. And then that was the picture we re-imprinted. So after that, we kind of, you get on with life. You don't think much more about it until I got an email from Carl to say, oh, just let you know, Caroline had a baby boy. So I emailed back and I went like, well, what did how was the birth? And he emailed me back and said, I'm a man. I didn't ask in the email. So I emailed her and said, congratulations, how was the birth? And all she emailed me back was like, we need to talk. And it was like, oh no, okay. So like looking in my diary, okay, I need to book some time to talk with Caroline and maybe do some repair work because the birth didn't go how it was meant to be and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, she comes on the phone. I said, right, how was it? How was the birth? She said, whoa, wait, let me tell you all the things that happened after the session. I went, okay, then I'll tell you about the birth. Okay. So she said that first of all, when she got home, her husband noticed how happy she was. All right. She says that her husband is a professional footballer, so he used to have to travel all over the world playing football. Every morning that he was packing his bag to leave, they would end up having a massive argument. Right. She had no clue why she would keep like trying to incite an argument with him on the day that he's leaving her. All right. Until it stopped happening, until after the session, because she realizes that him packing his bag to leave was pressing her baby trauma button of mum leaving her.
Yeah.
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 So she resolved that even though you didn't tap directly on it.
Exactly. Because we healed the original reason for the trigger to be there.
Yes.
She was no longer triggered.
And that's that's the generalization effect, isn't it, that they refer to in clinical EFT, they call it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, or how I see it is we got to the seed event.
Yes.
The root of what was creating that button, even though we weren't focused on it. Anyway, so there was that between her husband. People in the family were making some comments about like, you guys seem to be even closer as a family than you were before, like what's going on? Luke's neck issue did go away.
Yes.
Yeah. So she kept asking him, how's your neck today? Yeah, mummy, it doesn't hurt, hasn't hurt for a little while. Stop asking me.
Not just a coincidence.
Not just a coincidence. But the best thing was when she said the birth of Archie was exactly like she'd shown the birth was going to be.
Sharon, that gives me truth bumps.
I know. And at that moment when she was telling me that, it was like, now I know what I'm here for. I then in that moment when she told me that, I decided, actually, I want to know more about this birth and bonding stuff. I think this could be something I could get passionate about and have as a speciality.
Yeah.
Not even thinking about my own birth experience until many years later. So in that moment, I made the commitment that this is what I was going to do. And that's when I feel like the universe put me on the yellow brick road.
Yes.
So up to that point, I was searching for the yellow brick road. When I met EFT, I could see the yellow brick road, but I wasn't quite on it yet until that session with Caroline. And then I was firmly placed on the yellow brick road, and the universe went, right, you need education. So I'm going to connect you with Joseph Chilton Pierce. I'm going to connect you with Suzanne Arms. I'm going to connect you with Marcy Agnes. We're all these like famous people in America. Suzanne, they're just like, I just ended up going to conferences in America. The information just kept coming to me.
Yes.
And then in 2014, I decided that I needed to write a book because I was kind of feeling this pressure of like, I have all this information, and yes, I'm teaching courses to people, but it needs to get out wider.
Yes.
So that's when I decided to write Heal Your Birth, Heal Your Birth, Heal Your Life book. Because I had this information that needed to come out, and I had all these amazing case studies, and it's mixed with science as well, scientific evidence to what we're doing. So
wow, Sharon.
Yeah. So that's how it started. And now I just work with anybody, from conception to birth to pregnancy to, giving birth to your child, anything to do in that area. And of course, if you go back in the womb, you're also like tapping into past lives, you're tapping into ancestral energy. So that's how the light matrix came about, which we've kind of forgotten to say, but the light matrix is all about working with past lives.
Yes, I did
energy,
leave that one out.
And your life purpose. Why are you here?
Yes.
Why do these events happen to us?
And I think that maybe, Sharon, that might be a good segue into just a bit of a description of magic, miracles, and manifestation, because it's almost like that was a little bit of a miracle, our manifestation example of when the birth was, exactly as planned after doing that work. Could you tell us a little bit about what's involved in that program that you also offer?
So the magic, miracles, and manifestation is very much based on, my experience of exactly that. When you start opening up to the universe, when you start following the signs from the universe, when you're asking open questions and then the answers are coming back to you, that's when you're living your true life. This is how we should be living. We're asking questions and then the answers are coming to us. But because we're so distracted by everything else, we tend not to live that way. But I started living that way through numerous different things that came about, obviously with working with Caroline, just showing how we can change our future but by healing our past, by accepting where we are now, and then working either with our future self or putting good energy into the future of what I'm feeling. They talk about you've got to feel as if you've got it now. Dr. Joe Dispenza, talks about it now. So this is a really good way of, getting into that feel good feeling where we do exercises like in meditation, like just living your average perfect day. Like your average perfect day, not the day that you may be living and doing the job that you don't like and things like this. So, it's looking at what we don't like, what we want to change, and then getting into the feeling of how it is. And we use different techniques from mind movies or whatever. So breath work as well. I do the breath work with people, and we have phenomenal music, phenomenal breathwork sessions, because that really helps to lift your energy. Because when you're manifesting something amazing in the future, you have to be in a high vibing place.
Yes, because we create what we vibrate.
Exactly.
So we're still holding on to all that past trauma.
Exactly.
And all those old stories.
If you're in depression, it's very hard unless you do something to lift that depressed state. It's very
like tapping.
Like tapping. All you're creating for your future, if you're just stuck in depression, is more depression.
Yes, exactly.
Right. You can't get up and do the same thing every day and expect life to change.
Yeah. You got to meet yourself where you're at, process it, and then create a new story.
Yeah. So that's what magic, miracles, and manifestation is like reclaiming our magic, looking at what we do. I talk about but some of the powerful mystical experiences I had doing the Dr. Joe retreats, and then we're using some of that energy to bounce off of as well. And so that one is particularly about the future, creating the future life that you want to be living now. So that's magic, miracles, and manifestation. It's very different.
Beautiful,
it's very different.
Yeah, it's exciting, that feeling when you do feel like you start to co-create your future with the universe. It's like you're working with it,
and it's happening.
Going with the flow instead of against the flow.
What I realized, sorry, Sally, but what I realized is that at the time, when as a trauma therapist, right, we put a lot of our attention on trauma, right, learning about trauma. Working with people with trauma, hearing trauma stories, and there is such thing as vicarious trauma.
Yes.
right? And vicarious trauma is when you start taking on the energy of other people,
like the wives
and
of post-war veterans.
yes, exactly. So you're living that trauma with that person. So it got to the stage where I wasn't doing my self-care. I wasn't
Yeah.
taking care of myself.
Yeah.
I didn't have strong boundaries. So this is how
Mm.
the this series came about, because I was over responsible, didn't have clear boundaries, and I wasn't doing my self-care. So all of that also has to come into how you change. You've got to be very aware of what is yours, what's not yours.
Yes.
So but I went into burnout, right? So it's like, okay, so started to listen to Dr. Joe, realized that I can't get up every morning and do the same thing and expect my life to change. So I put my attention more on the meditation, breath work, anything that was high vibing, anything that was going to, and then I went off and did a lot of Dr. Joe Dispenza's retreats and just had the most incredible time, but also watching other people, people that have been in wheelchairs for 20 years, getting up and walking after doing a walking meditation, that somebody pushes them in the wheelchair and they imagine walking as their future self, and that while they're being pushed along in the wheelchair, they are in their mind, they're mentally rehearsing the walking, and at the end of the meditation, a lot of them will get up and walk.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I wonder if there's something in that with the collective consciousness of the people that are there. You've got Joe who believes it and has experienced his own healing miracles, and then you've got other people there who know it's possible. So it's almost like collectively they're helping.
Yes, and that is the important word you said there, Sally. You've got to know it's possible. It's like the 4-minute mile.
Yes.
Right. So if you are laying next to somebody like I was, a guy called Jonathan, and you can look up his testimonial there, he had had a major motorcycle accident, so much so that almost every bone in his body was broken, including his face. So his face was deformed. And then during one of the meditations that we were doing a lot of breath work with, I could just sense or hear next door, because he was lying next to me, that he was having a very powerful, his whole body was vibrating and bouncing around on the floor. Right. That was his Kundalini energy, like forcing its way through his body. He said he felt his bones being realigned.
Wow.
Right. And he said afterwards, like, it took him a long time to come back and round from that experience. But eventually he got to the bathroom, and when he looked in the mirror, what was looking back at him was more of his original face.
Wow.
Yeah. And so
amazing.
Literally his body was being
truth bumps again.
Yeah. People with cancer, their tumors have disappeared because they've raised, and they were. And his philosophy is the more joy, the more lighter frequency you can feel, the heavy, dense diseases in our body can't survive. They have to go, right? So by raising your frequency and not even caring that you've got cancer, it's just like, I am just in love with life. I feel so much love.
And it's that biology of belief. I think Dawson Church has got a lot of studies around the biology of belief and how it's actually changing this very structure of your genes, the genie in your genes.
That's why I decided to start teaching the magic miracles and manifestation, because it's great. I love it. I do love working with people and helping them transform their trauma, but I don't want to be doing that 24/7.
You've got that positive.
High vibe course. This is a high vibing course.
Awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to do it too, Sharon.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so now if you feel like, unless you've got anything more you feel like you want to add at the moment, it might be a good time for us to work through a bit of a demonstration with me. And we can do a little bit of a session for people to get a taste of what this looks like.
Okay. All right. Let me just grab my pad.
All right.
Oh, it should be right here.
And this will be Sylvia's first
experience
of witnessing an EFT session.
Did
you have any questions, Sylvia, just while I find my pen?
Oh, look, I probably have a lot of questions, but I'm just kind of taking it all in today because I know of EFT and I've done some EFT before, but the heliobirth concept is a completely new one for me. And I mean, I'm, like I said, I've got 2 little boys as well, and I had a doula, so I was, lucky enough to have 2 quite good births. Although, like, after what you've just told us, I'm like, I want to come and see you, because one of my kids, my second son, he was posterior, for example. So it was a very, very painful birth. No one
Painful
really
birth.
knew he was posterior, but then he came out and everyone was like, oh my God, you've just given birth to a posterior baby. So yeah, it's just something that ever since I've been pregnant, I've been really interested in it, and, working with my doula. And I've had her on my podcast as well at some point, talking about a spiritual birth, and, the fact that, I mean, your example today was so beautiful as well, talking about, the hospital and how birth does get medicalized, and how so many women actually fear what's supposed to be such a normal and beautiful experience in our lives, and that with the right support, and I mean, we never know how it's really going to go, right? But with the right support, at least you've got better chances for it to go the way that it's supposed to go. So yeah, just lots of beautiful things in there. So I'm really excited to hearing your demonstration now. And yeah, I have to check out your offerings as well, and have to lock something in with you.
All right, my dear, you're very welcome, Sylvia.
Thank you.
Sally, okay, so what are we going to work on? Your daughter's birth?
Yes. We had a little chat before we started the interview about how I've been experiencing some pelvic congestion. Was that what we were going to work with? Or we just go straight back to the birth of my first daughter, Aurora, where my contractions started at midnight on her due date, the 23rd of May. And then I ended up, I went into hospital that morning, and they're like, yes, it looks like you'll be back here later today. Just go home and, rest a bit and wait until the contractions pick up. And then I had it was about 36 hours of being in pre-labor, they call it, when it's sort of like a contraction every 15 minutes and then 5 minutes and then 20 minutes. And it's quite irregular. It doesn't get into that active labor state. So I couldn't go back into the hospital until my husband at the time, I guess it was him that was feeling most impatient and just wanted, he'd taken the day off work and he wanted to go and have this baby. And I sort of felt like I lost my say, and before I knew it, I was getting induced. And it was I think it was a very small amount of Syntocin that they gave me, but that stimulated the labor. And then I had Aurora. I didn't have any epidural, but there was still that intervention that I hadn't necessarily chosen for myself. It didn't feel like I chose it for myself anyway. I was sort of pushed into it, even though I really could have stood up for myself if I really wanted to, or if I felt like I had a strong enough voice to do it at the time, then I could have done it.
Yes.
And in fact, as I'm explaining this to you, Sharon, there's other things that could be explored here. Like when it actually was time to leave the hospital, I was still figuring out the breastfeeding, and I'd only been in the hospital for 1 or 2 nights because I was in the public system at Royal Women's Hospital, and I was still figuring out the breastfeeding, and I had some midwives there helping. And you've got to be quite patient with your baby, because they might look like they're finished, but you've got to give them a moment to see if they need more milk. And Andrew just wanted to leave the hospital. He thought it was time to go, so he wanted to go. And I still knew that Aurora wasn't really finished feeding yet, but I got sort of hurried out of the hospital when really I should have waited another like 10 or 15 minutes to let her keep drinking if she wanted to. And then, so I think she wasn't fully settled. And then he wanted to get in the car and drive home. And he didn't want me to put the seatbelt on. So I was just sitting there. It's the first time you're taking this tiny little precious thing home. And we didn't even clip the seatbelt in. So I was sitting there so nervously holding her on the way home. So I guess there was a little bit of that could be relevant too.
And how is she as a character then? Because there's a lot of rushing going on.
Yes.
Like she got rushed out of the room.
Oh gosh,
she's
yeah.
getting rushed with feeding. There's a lot of rushing energy going on here.
Yes. And then when she was 4, her dad and I split up, and she was then going between homes as well. And so she is, I find that she spends a lot of time, she's often dysregulated. So she's either really hyper aroused and it's hard to like get through to her and calm her down, or she's like flopsy and lethargic. And so that sort of window of tolerance, or that green zone, maybe isn't as big as it could be. She's a beautiful girl. Like she's got the most amazing heart, and she's so empathetic and caring, and she connects really well. Interestingly, she connects a lot with adults and older kids. Sometimes she struggles a little bit socially with kids her own age. She's just started primary school, so she's in kinder and she's settling in there okay. But over the last year, she had a really hard year because she was getting used to life in two homes, going between her dad's and my house, and also two preschools because of the way things are in Sydney, in such a high demand area. So she was across two preschools and two homes, and she was really struggling with that. So I saw someone last year that's helped me a lot, and we did some circle of security training and tuning into kids' emotions. And I've been learning a lot to try and help her with that, but a lot of dysregulation. And I think a lot of it, I've had a really stressful couple of years going through separation and divorce. So I would have also not had the most regulated nervous system. And so they, obviously kids pick up on that too.
Okay.
Mm.
So where would you like to go? Bearing in mind, I don't know how much longer you've got here, but where would you like to go? Because we're
Okay,
not
so
going to be able to do all of it.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, so I've probably got about half an hour because I'll have to go and pick her up. And you
Okay.
might need to go as well. But
Yes.
well, the rushing.
Okay. Do you want to go to the breastfeeding part?
I can
Or
feel the anxiety coming up as we're talking about this already. I'm feeling the
okay. All
sensation
right.
in my throat.
Yes.
I think it feels like anxiety in my chest, and it's me not being able to stand up for what's best for my child, even though I felt like I should have.
Mm-hmm.
So it's maybe me feeling like I should have. Maybe it's guilt as well that I wasn't strong enough to say, no, this is what she needs and this is what we're doing.
All right.
I didn't have my strong enough boundaries to stand up for my child and what her needs were in that moment.
All
Because
right.
it also then came to issues with, this will be relevant too. I was breastfeeding her for about 3 months, and then I felt like because my mother-in-law didn't approve of breastfeeding, and we were on holidays with her in Noosa, and if I went for a swim, she'd get out formula and be giving the bottle. And, before I knew it, my milk supply wasn't good enough to keep going. And Aurora wanted formula. So I think that that was a really difficult process for me emotionally. And I stopped breastfeeding sooner than I would have wanted to. I kept it up for 6 months, but by that stage, I was only doing once or twice a day. And she was
Mm.
having bottles for the rest. When in hindsight, I wish that I had been stronger in that time with my mother-in-law, quite a strong character, and my ex-husband. Sort of, I wasn't able to breastfeed in the living room, for example, like because they thought they didn't want me to do it in front of their dad, and so I was sort of told to go to the bedroom. And then, like, when we were out, we had Aurora's christening. I mean, she was only 3 months old. It's a bit young to get christened anyway, but we had her christening because both of our parents were there from Melbourne and New Zealand, and we went out for lunch, and I didn't feel like I could comfortably breastfeed, or if we were on the beach, because I knew that they were uncomfortable with it. So it didn't feel like mine and Aurora's choice. Um, mm,
Alrighty. So just tune into the energy of that.
mm.
Where are you feeling that in your body?
In my lower belly.
What color is that energy?
Mm. It's like a dark red.
And what's the emotion or emotions in that dark red energy?
Mm. I think it's a bit of anger, frustration and anger. Mm.
And what color needs to come in to lift and lighten that
Gold.
dark? Beautiful.
Mm.
So just get a sense of that golden energy coming in,
Mm.
coming into your lower belly.
Mm.
And now I want you to imagine just sending that golden energy back down your timeline to
Mm.
all of the younger yous that felt like they weren't able to stand up for themselves, that their voice couldn't be heard.
Mm.
And just get a sense of all being wrapped up in a beautiful golden blanket of energy, all the way back through your adulthood, into your childhood,
Mm.
back to you being a baby, and back to your time in utero.
Mm.
And as you feel up that timeline, where do we need to go to?
I had something come through quite quickly there, Sharon, and it was
Mm-hmm.
actually this connection to, I don't remember this, but my mum tells me that she only breastfed me for about 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I now say this, a story has come to mind that she's told me about when she breastfed my brother, and he was the first of three. He was 4 years older
Mm-hmm.
than me. And her, I think her friend Helen had sort of talked about how much better the bottle is and put down, a bit like my mother-in-law, put down breastfeeding and said, you should be doing this, you should be doing this. And I think she stopped a lot earlier with my older brother. And then with me, she only did about 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Mm. So that feels like the emotions in my chest there.
Mm-hmm. And what emotions are coming up?
It feels like neglect or like this unloved kind of wound.
Mm-hmm. And the emotion, sadness, maybe?
Yeah, like worthlessness just came to mind, but yeah, I guess it's a sadness as well. Mm.
Okay. And what color is the energy in the chest?
Mm. It's like a murky green.
Okay. And what color needs to come in?
Gold, same gold color.
Beautiful. Alrighty. So just wrap your 6 week old, your 6 week old self, your baby self, wrap her up in a beautiful golden blanket.
Mm.
And do we need to start with a little bit of tapping first to bring the intensity down, or is it
No, it actually feels
too
really
hard?
good. Like even just
Okay.
I just had this really warm sensation come through, even just with this image of me holding my little 6 week old self in a gold blanket into my
Beautiful.
chest. It felt like it was
Yeah,
really soothing.
good. Alrighty. What are you sensing about her?
She, I feel like I've been tuning into her recently because I realize how hard it must have been, or must be for like third children in families or
Yes.
fourth or fifth, or, just with the amount of noise and distraction there is. And especially for me, like knowing what it's like as a mum when you're running around after toddlers and, preschoolers or primary schoolers, and you've also got a baby to tend to, like it's actually impossible to be able to meet everyone's needs. But for the
Mm-hmm.
like second or third or fourth or fifth child or whatever, it's like the love and attention is naturally just divided, the further you go down. Um, so I guess I have a bit of a mixture of like understanding and compassion for my mum, because I realized it was an impossible task to have like
Yes.
to perfectly meet the needs of every child. And I feel like that's immediately like um, softening how I feel towards Aurora, who I've explained that sometimes I can be very triggered by her.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes her behavior might be just coming from her needing me when I'm trying to tend to a younger child with Sienna. And it's
Okay.
easy to get lost.
Okay. Tuning into your baby self.
Mm,
All right. Not adult you, but your
yeah,
baby self.
getting
Let
distracted. Yeah.
just yeah, just let her know that you can see her, you can hear her, you can feel
Mm,
her, that you've come from her future to help her.
mm, mm.
And now just tune into her physical body. What are you sensing?
I just felt as soon as you said that, you said, come back to tuning into the little baby. I felt my body soften. I was like, oh, I'm holding all this tension I didn't realize I was holding.
Yes. And you're talking about tension in your pelvic area and your back, your lower
Yeah.
back as well.
Yeah. And congestion.
Yeah. All right. So for the baby, where is she holding this energy?
Mm.
Do you sense
She's
there is
holding
an
it.
energy being?
Yeah, she's been holding it all through her spine. It's like it's all the way down her spinal cord.
Yeah. And what color is that energy?
It's that murky green.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I'm going to ask you here, how much of that, or what's the emotion? Actually, let's get the emotion first. What is the emotion in that murky green energy all down her spine?
Um, it's this like unloved emotion.
Okay.
Mm,
And what color needs to come in?
the gold.
Okay. Should we do a little bit of tapping with your younger self?
Yeah.
Yeah, so just tapping on the side of our hand, even though you're feeling unloved.
Even though you're feeling unloved
Would it be fair to say and a little bit rejected by mum?
and a little
The
bit rejected.
rejection.
Yeah, and a little bit rejected by mum.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like mum's irritated by me a little bit.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
It's safe to release some of this now.
it's safe to release some of this now.
Even though you're feeling unloved,
Even though I'm feeling unloved,
it's safe to release some of it now.
it's safe to release some of this now.
Okay. Even though you're feeling unloved,
Even though you're feeling unloved,
it's safe to release some of it now.
it's safe to release some of this now.
Okay. Top of the head, all of this anger and frustration.
All of this anger and frustration,
Beginning of the eyebrow, feeling unworthy.
feeling unworthy,
Side of the eye, feeling unloved.
feeling unloved.
Under the eye, it's safe to release some of this now.
It's safe to release some of this now.
All of this murky green energy.
All of this murky green energy,
This murky green energy.
this murky green energy.
Up to the collarbone. It's safe to release some of it now.
It's safe to release some of this now.
Okay, just keep tapping on that one point with her. If we were to give her permission to safely express her anger, how would she choose to do so?
I was just kind of visualizing her really screaming, like as loud as she can, with a big red face. And it's funny because Aurora was doing this yesterday. She goes, "Look how angry I can make my face." And she made her face go all red. And I feel like I'm seeing that in my little baby self.
Yeah, okay. And what does she need now in order to help her?
She needs to be picked up and held.
Mm-hmm. By you or by mum?
By both of us. She wants us both there.
Okay.
Mm.
And as adult you, Sally, how can you translate this to mum so maybe mum has a chance to understand what's happening for baby Sally?
A lot of emotion coming up now. I can feel a lot of sadness coming up.
Uh-huh.
And
Okay, just allow that sadness to come. Don't try and
yeah,
stuff it down.
lots of tears, like a big lump in my throat coming out. And I
Yeah.
feel like I think because I experienced, I'm the third child in my family, but I had children first, and
Mm-hmm.
Aurora was the first. So she got that really special experience of of being the first grandchild. And it was so special having my granny come and stay from Melbourne and just have so much time with just granny and Aurora and me.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just that special bond and connection because there was just that undivided attention and that love and
Yeah.
affection that Aurora got from us both.
Yes.
And now, like now I've had a second child and my sister lives in Sydney too, and she's got two babies now. So we've got between us like a 5-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 1-year-old. Sorry, a 0-year-old. And my brother's got two kids down in Melbourne as well. And so everything gets just a bit diluted. And Aurora really struggles with that. Like Granny comes and she doesn't stay with us now. She normally stays with my sister because she's got younger babies to help with. And Aurora's been getting really jealous and upset, and she struggles with the separation from her. And yeah, I'm just sort of realizing how special it was to have that time with just Aurora and Granny. You don't
And
realize
that's
how
what,
special it is at the time,
no, but that's what your baby self needs right
That's
now.
what my baby self wants. She wants
Yeah.
to have just Granny and And even my sister, you know, my Aurora's
Yeah.
auntie and godmother, she had that, yeah, for a while. And that's what I never had.
All right. How is your mum responding to hearing
She's crying.
this? Okay. What does mum need?
A break. Oh, some help.
Well, she needs some help. Okay.
She
Who can
needs
we
she
bring?
needs three versions of her.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's bring in some help for her then.
But she needs three of her, not just one, you know.
Mhm.
Is that possible in the quantum field?
Anything's possible.
Yeah. So I blew up yesterday at my kids. I went crazy because I was just so overwhelmed. And I feel like that's how she was feeling. She probably never expressed it.
Yes. And I was also going to ask you how much of emotion is your baby self feeling that actually belongs to mum?
Yeah. She probably took on a lot, you know. You just take on, you just mirror the nervous system
Mm-hmm.
of those around you. And if I don't have three children. I can only imagine how, with no, her family's all in South Africa, and she
Mm-hmm.
wasn't that close with my dad's mum. Um, so it must have been so hard for her.
Okay. So rather than guessing, can we
Yeah,
go back in and can
yeah,
we have a conversation with mum
yeah,
and to see how she's doing? What are you sensing about her? First of all, just use your senses. If you sense her as an energy being, what are you picking up?
Mm. She's just running on adrenaline.
Mhm.
Yeah, no time for self-care.
No.
Yeah,
Okay.
just running
What
from
does
one thing to the next, exhausted.
Okay. So maybe we can just bring some help in just
Yeah,
for the time being and sit your mum down.
yeah,
Maybe just do a little bit of tapping with her for this overwhelm that she's feeling, this overwhelm of emotion.
yeah.
Even though you're feeling tired and overwhelmed, and you
Even though
need three versions of yourself,
even though you're feeling tired and overwhelmed and you need three versions of yourself,
you're still a beautiful mother.
you're still a beautiful mother.
Even though you're feeling overwhelmed.
Even though you're feeling overwhelmed.
And there's just not enough time in the day.
And there's just not enough time in the day.
You're still a beautiful person.
You're still a beautiful person.
Even though you've got all of this overwhelm.
Even though you've got all of this overwhelm,
It's safe to release some of it now.
safe to release some of this now.
Okay, top of the head, all of this overwhelm.
All of this overwhelm.
Feeling tired,
Feeling tired.
feeling like you have to do it all alone.
Feeling like you have to do it all alone.
Under the eye, this overwhelm.
This overwhelm.
It's safe to release some of it now.
It's safe to release some of it now.
This stress and overwhelm.
This stress and overwhelm.
All of this overwhelm.
All of this overwhelm.
It's safe to release some of it now.
It's safe to release some of it now.
Okay, so you check in with her, Sally. How's she doing?
Oh, she's good. She's flopped in the chair and she's so relieved.
Good,
Yeah.
good, good, good. All right. So, does she have the space and time just to hold baby Sally in her arms while she does that?
Yes. She's going to sing to me. Mm.
And how's your baby self responding to being sung to by mum?
I'm so happy.
Good. All right. Is there anything else she needs in this moment?
She wants her granny to be there from South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And as you tune back into her physical body now and just check down her spine, what color's the energy in her spine?
It's gold.
And how about in the chest
Gold.
and her pelvis?
Yeah, she feels gold.
Good. Awesome. All right. Is there anything else that she needs? Anything else she needs to say? Anything else she needs to experience?
A butterfly kiss, which is,
Yeah.
do you know what that is?
Yeah.
And you kiss with your eyelashes and a little rub on the nose.
Okay.
She likes that.
Good. So as you see her there now, just resting with mum, they're just in the present moment together. There's nothing else they have to do. Just notice there's a beautiful color coming from and around that picture. What would it be?
Gold.
Yeah, it's a surprise. Okay. So make everything in that picture bigger, brighter, and stronger. All the colors, all the sounds, the feelings, the emotions. And take that image into your mind and allow your mind to reconnect with that new way of being and that new way of feeling. Feeling loved, connected. And then take that image down into your heart, and your heart's going to feel that beautiful golden energy. Then your heart's going to open and transmit that beautiful gold to every cell of your body, from the top of your head, into your throat, into your chest, down into your abdomen. And just take a little time as you bring that gold down into your abdomen. Allow it just to let go of any remaining stuck energy that may be held there. And releasing it down the legs, to the toes, and out through the soles of the feet. You can let that go into the earth. Bringing the gold down your arms to your fingertips. And then as you bring your attention back to your heart, just open your heart and send that energy out to the universe, that beautiful golden energy. And just notice the universe is bringing back even more of that golden energy in through the crown of your head, down into your heart, to every cell in your body, and then back out to the universe. And now as you bring your attention back to your heart space, just see your little 6-week-old self there in your heart, and just notice she has a message for you. What is she saying?
Bit of a weird one, but she wants to just say that the milk never stops flowing. The milk never really stops flowing.
Okay.
Which I think has many bigger
Yes.
meanings. Yeah.
Absolutely. And everybody's making a meaning to what that means to them right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Sally. Thank you. So good to meet your little 6-week-old self.
Yeah. Thanks, Sharon.
So you never know where these sessions are going to go to.
We
Even
really
though
don't.
we tried
Yeah.
to plan it, it was like you've just got to go where the energy
Yeah.
takes you, and it's quite often not where you think you need to go.
I know.
But
It's amazing how the subconscious just steps in, and it can be really clear and loud what part of you needs tending to or healing. And
it was really beautiful to watch, and also just to kind of watch Sally and, you know, the emotions and how her face changes and how the whole demeanor changes, and you could, you know, really see yourself relax into yourself at the end. You know, it's just beautiful to see. And yeah, listeners who will be watching it on YouTube will see that, you know. But yeah, I do have a question though, Sharon. So, because you know, in terms of the releasing of emotions, you know, that comes up, like I found towards the end of your demonstration, I kept yawning and I kept releasing energy. So I'm just interested in that. Like, is it like talking about the collective consciousness, you know, that we've talked about before as well? Was that me supporting Sally in that case to release, or was that almost like me releasing subconsciously things as well for myself? Like, how does that work? Because I could obviously feel that energy because we are all connected, right?
Mirror neurons, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So the answer to that would be both.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so especially taught in EFT, we talk about secondary gains. So if you're watching a demo and you're tapping along, you're engrossed in what's going on, but you're also clearing stuff for yourself.
See, I was
But
thinking about while you were tapping, I was like, should I be tapping? But then, yeah,
Yeah, you can get borrowed
absolutely.
benefits.
Yeah.
yeah.
So you get borrow benefits from that. So yes, you're not only releasing because we're all empathic beings, whether we're conscious of it or not. So
Yeah.
we can't help feeling other people's emotions. This is why I asked Sally how much of that emotion belonged to her baby self and how much belongs to
Yeah.
mum. Because as like we said right at the beginning, we're sponges. So a lot of the emotional stuff that we're carrying is doesn't belong to us. Our beliefs quite often don't belong to us either. So, but yeah, just by witnessing somebody going through a session like that, through a transformation, you can't help but your system also goes through that transformation.
Yeah, beautiful.
Lynn Taggart has a very good example of that, and I think her book's called The Power of Eight. And what she did was a study where she got people in groups of 8, and then one person would be the healee and the other 7 would be the healers. Or it would be 8 people doing the healing and 1 in the middle, but then that would be 9. Anyway, I think it's 8. So 7 healing, 1 in the middle. And what she discovered, and this was all done online, what she discovered is that the people that were doing the healing quite often, even though they're focused on somebody else, quite often whatever it is they had going on would shift for them.
Yeah.
So when you get into that group energy, that's why I love teaching workshops, because
I was just going to say that, yeah.
Yeah, because the whole group changes. Yes.
Because that's, I think, what's so powerful about, breath work and workshops. And Sally, we talked about that this morning as well, bringing groups together because you're kind of, you're healing together and you're getting that benefit from everyone else around you.
Could I just add a little point in here? Because what I learned from Dr. Joe was the fact that the amount of people doesn't necessarily equal the amount of healing. So the reason I say that is I went to a workshop in Germany that had 1,500 people all sitting and meditating together. All right. And he has what he calls Sputnik. It's a little sensing device, looks like a little mini radar thing, and it reads the energy in the room. So what he does is so the Sputnik's like every minute or so, it's taking a reading. So if you look in his book, Becoming Supernatural, you'll see that this is the baseline energy of the room. So they take the baseline of the reading of the room before anybody comes in, before Dr. Joe's even arrived. So they have a base point, and then it'll be the first day of meditation, group meditation, we'll be here. The second day we'll be here. The third day we'll be here, and the fourth day we'll be here. But what he discovered is and then I went from that one to one in Indian Wells where there was only 750 people, but this was the last 4-day event he was going to do before he changed to doing 7 days. So there's less people. So you would automatically assume that the peak energy of the room in Germany, because there was more people, would have been higher. But no, because this was his last event, because we were all in, it was just the most magical experience. We're surrounded by mountains, and we were held, and we blew the what happened in Bonn. We blew that out of the water. Wow. Because of our collective energy, and he was able to raise our energy higher than he was able to do in Germany. So don't think about the numbers. Think about the high vibing, the vibration of the piece, and what you're doing. So the higher you can raise your frequency, you're automatically inviting other people to raise their frequency too.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you.
I think also with that, Sylia, you can get, because of the way mirror neurons work, even if you're not tapping, your neurons are still firing as though they are as you're watching me. And even if you said, that's why yawning is contagious. Even if you see somebody else yawn, that's why you can then other people start yawning. Or if even you notice it as a teacher in classrooms, if one person takes a drink, other people will take a drink or feel thirsty. So that can happen. But there's also something called surrogate tapping. And you can, with kids, you can tap for them. Even if they're not tapping, you can tap yourself and calm yourself down or your nervous system down, or even just say what you think they're feeling. And you can do this even with babies, like we just did in the memory of my 6-week-old self. You can sort of tap for the baby, or tap on your own feelings about the baby crying, and that can also help to calm their nervous system down, stimulate their relaxation response.
I do this all the time on airplanes. As you're coming down, if there's any babies on board, they start to have pain in their ears. And of course, you're also strapped in, so you can't get up and go and do anything for that baby. But if you just, like in your mind, just imagine just standing in front of the baby and tapping on the baby for the pain in the ears, even just acknowledging that change in the altitude is what's creating pain. So, the pain in the ears, you're safe, it's okay, this is going to pass very quickly. I tell you, with a couple of rounds of imaginary tapping on that baby, the baby stops crying.
Yes, amazing. And they say that also for yourself, you can even do imagined tapping. Like you visualize yourself tapping and you're still getting the benefits.
Exactly. It's intention. Everything is intention.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yes. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yes. All right, ladies. Well, I'm going to be off to pick up Aurora and Sienna very soon. So we might need to wrap up, but what an amazing conversation and demonstration.
I think the three of us could probably talk for many podcasts.
Yes,
I have a feeling
so
as well. Plus, I love that all our names start with an S. Every time I look at the screen, I'm like, Sylia, Sharon. I love it. It's awesome.
Well, Sharon, you're very welcome to join in on the next episode, which will be with Sylvia about human design. So you can jump in and join us there as well if you like, and ask some questions along the way and get a taste for it. But thank you so much to both of you for joining. And Sharon, special thanks to you for sharing all your incredible knowledge and experience and wisdom and insights. And, you've got so many gifts to offer the world. So I'm, really, really glad that you came on the podcast and you've shared that with me and Sylvia, and that we can hopefully share it more widely as well, and get some of the work that you're doing out there and get more people doing this, because the ripple effects are just endless. They're infinite. So thank you so much.
I also want to say thank you, Sharon. Like Sally said, we met this morning for coffee, and now 3 hours later we're here recording this. So I'm very grateful that you guys are having me along the ride, and it's just been absolutely wonderful to meet you and get exposed to your work. And I've got your website on here already, so I will be diving deep and seeing some of the things that you do. So thank you for sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you. Good to meet you, Sylvia, and I'll see you on the next podcast.
Yes, thanks, ladies. All right, thanks for listening, anyone out there. All right, and we'll share lots of info on the show notes as well, to Sharon's courses and books and all her offerings, and along with Sylvia's too. All right, lots of love. Bye for now.
Bye. Thanks, Sally.